Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Another episode of News and Opinion for the week. All right. Let's see what's on my menu today of things to talk about. Let's see here. Uh, New York City, New York City, Occupy City Hall dismantled finally. Told you it was a homeless encampment, and pretty much it was. It was a homeless encampment. Let's see, when was it dismantled? Wednesday, July 22nd, I believe 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. So-called so-called Abolition Park. They want to abolish. They want to abolish the police. They want to abolish everything. They want to abolish the government. I think they also want to abolish rent. They want to abolish rent. So the moratorium on rent and mortgages that's expiring soon. So I'll be talking a little bit about that. And then Portland, okay, Portland protest. The Portland mayor gets gassed. All right, the Portland mayor gets gassed at the Portland protest in front of the I think the federal courthouse. Really embarrassing. If you haven't seen the video, I'll try to leave some links in the notes section. From the video I saw, it looked like he was talking about how there's no reason for for federal law enforcement to start gassing everyone, and in the background you see people like starting fires and throwing things and everything, and eventually he leaves. He leaves the area because he can't handle the gas. Um, he's being booed and he's being followed. It's really embarrassing. If this is the mayor, my goodness, no wonder Portland is going to the extreme radical left. He's a weak mayor. Anyway, I'll talk about that and some of my opinions and some of the things that I think is going to happen in the near future because of all these things that are happening. Also, I think recently, it may have been last night, since this recording right now, I'm recording this. When am I recording this? July 25th at, what time is it right now? I think it's 10 o'clock. So it's 10 o'clock. And so I think last night there was a stabbing at the protest in Portland. And so I, I, I think people have to become more violent to be heard because obviously they won't participate in a political process, in a due process. They just want to be an angry mob. So angry mobs become violent. All right, some of the other things I'll talk about is Trump sends the FBI, ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshals, and Homeland Security to major, major crime-ridden cities. Chicago, I hear Chicago. Um, I hear about Seattle. I think is it Kansas City? Kansas City. Wouldn't surprise me. New York, probably Atlanta. But Chicago's been the main focus in the news. But I think there's going to be more. I've been hearing about Seattle as well. This is going to be a very, very busy weekend for the federal law enforcement and for the protesters, for the peacefully protesters. They're not really peaceful. They're peaceful during the day when they have their moms and their dads come out and protest. But at night, when the smart people leave, you got the rioters who are left behind. So I think in Portland, someone got stabbed. So, anyways, so I'll talk a little bit about that and what this could mean, possibly what this could mean. The other thing I'll talk about is in Houston, where I am. apparently the Chinese consulate was ordered to close. There's actually 3 Chinese nationals that are being arrested. There's, I think the fourth one was in San Francisco that was hiding out in the San Francisco Chinese consulate, a Chinese national. They have been arrested now, so that's total of 4 Chinese nationals arrested. All right, and I think it is related to uh, supposedly it's based on espionage, some spying, visas, supposedly visas. But I'm also hearing, I mean, they closed down the Houston consulate, so there's probably was some espionage going on here. Matter of fact, I think there's some footage of or videos showing the Chinese burning documents at the consulate. They're just throwing them. They're either having a barbecue pit party, all right. They're having a barbecue, or they're burning sensitive documents. Anyways, how is this related to everything I'm talking about? Well, we are in a coronavirus pandemic. Everyone is really angry at the Chinese, and they've sort of taken over Hong Kong. There's been a backlash against that. I think people are having a buildup of animosity toward the Chinese around the world. Another thing is, I think there is some interference going on domestically with the Chinese here in the U.S. So the Chinese are interfering with domestic issues here, politically, all right, as well as socially. And it's not surprising that the Chinese would get kicked out, because I do believe the Chinese are behind some of the recent Antifa movement and BLM movement that is going on. I had my suspicion that there is an outside force, foreign entity, interfering with our domestic affairs. And I think we got our answer. It was the Chinese, because the Houston Chinese consulate has been ordered to close. They may have also been stealing commercial technology, maybe vaccine information. Houston does have a very big medical center. I think one of the world's largest medical centers. So they could have been stealing medical information, uh, commercial technology. They've been doing that for years, but to have them finally close, I think it's more than that. They've been doing a lot. They've been interfering with our domestic affairs, and I think it's related to the recent protest. I think they've contributed to it. I think they're trying to also interfere in the election, and so there's a lot of things happening. Um, I think the U.S. is catching on. It's the Chinese. So I think we got our answer. The Chinese are the ones causing or behind a lot of our domestic issues that we're having right now. And so I think the noose is getting tighter and tighter. And this does not. I think in the coming months, things are going to get very, very crazy. So let me first talk about the New York City. Okay, so New York City. Um, I think my opinion on it is that I I think the movement over there is slowly dying. Okay, uh, the original movement was to defund the police. The police kind of got defunded, but I don't think that's going to last too long. Eventually, it got dismantled, because I do believe there was a credible. Probably you won't hear it on the news, but this is my opinion. There was a threat. Okay, there was a threat. Um, and also there probably was a lot of backlash towards the mayor. So it either was a threat to the mayor or a backlash to the mayor, Bill de Blasio, for allowing, all right, this homeless encampment to be done over at City Hall, or Abolition Park, which is now causing a whole different movement of abolition of rent. People want abolition of rent. Good luck with that. I don't think that's going to happen. You're talking about the highest value property value in the state here in New York City, and people want rent abolition. Just not going to happen. That that's expiring pretty soon. So is this unemployment money that's coming. That's probably already expired. So I think a lot of people are going back home. They're not going to protest anymore because they're out of money. And I think with the Chinese, I believe the Chinese was, I think the Chinese were behind this all along. Now that they've been kicked out, and or at least the one in Houston, and the U.S. is catching on, it's the Chinese who are contributing to this. I think the funding is going to dry up really soon. All right, let me get to Portland here. Even okay, so Portland, Portland. My gosh, the mayor made a fool of himself. Oh, and it's not helping. I think as time goes on, as the rest of America is looking at Portland. I mean, if we look at Seattle, the chop at Chaz, and we looked at Portland, and we looked at the riots in California and just all over the place. We looked at Atlanta. We're looking at Chicago. We're looking at New York City. We're looking at all these things. I'm talking about in general, okay, Americans in general. And is this what the general public really want for their future? I don't think so. And so as more time goes on, I think there's going to be more support to crush the movement that you see in Portland, to crush it, because the rest of America does not want this. Now, if there was any state that was going to secede from the Union, it would probably be Oregon. A couple states, if there was a civil war, which I don't think there would be, okay? I don't think there's a remote chance for civil war in the traditional sense. But you know, the state that has the most to lose from a civil war, if they were to secede, New York would have the most to lose. All right, followed by Chicago, followed by Seattle, followed by California or Washington. So let me start over. So the most to lose would be New York, then Illinois, and then Washington, and then California. And the last to lose the most would be Oregon. So Oregon has the biggest incentive to secede from the Union. I don't think they'll do it. If there was going to be a secession, it would be those 5 states, but it won't happen because they're so sparse. And it just, they wouldn't win. There's no way. They're surrounded. It's a red state versus blue state. The blue states would be obliterated, especially New York, Illinois. Now, if there was a secession, the best chance would be for Washington, Oregon, and California to secede, but they would get crushed. They just don't have the money, don't have the funds to start a rebellion. So civil war is just out of the question, in my opinion. But if there was a chance, Portland would be the state to have the most incentive to secede from the Union. Anyways, so Trump sends in FBI, ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshals, and Homeland Security. He didn't really send in. Okay, they were already there. All right. The FBI is pretty much in most major metropolitan cities. So is the ATF, the DEA, the U.S. Marshals are always around. And Homeland Security is just everywhere. You probably think of Homeland Security and the DEA being along the border, which they are, but they're also in every major metropolitan city. So this is not surprising. What's happening is there's a surge or a buildup in these places, and that is to defend against crime. Crime is skyrocketing. So if the local and the state cannot, all right, handle the crime, the federal government will step in. So the federal government is really the glue that keeps the union together. Without the federal government, this whole country would fall apart, which I don't think is going to happen. There's incentives to keep this country together. There's incentives to keep the union together, the state the state to stay in the union, and there's also incentives for the states to stay in the union as well. So you know, so what does this all mean? What does this all mean? Well, I think you're seeing the counterinsurgency happening here. This is probably it. Uh, the radical left, the Democrat-run cities are frantic because I think they're seeing the writing on the wall. This is all going to be ending very quickly. Their their I guess their inept incompetence is going to be ending very soon. Order will be restored, and I don't I don't think this is going to cause too much trouble. I think in the short term, maybe over the weekend and the next week here, you're probably going to see a lot of rioting within Chicago, probably New York, Seattle, Portland, maybe California, maybe places in Atlanta, where you've been getting a lot of the disturbance. But these federal agencies have already been there, all right? So I don't know what the concern is, but I think overall it's going to reduce the amount of crime that you're going to be seeing here. So there will be a lot of chaos in, at least in the short term. In the long term, things will settle down. So last thing I'm going to talk about is the Houston Chinese Consulate. I believe these people were caught stealing intellectual property, probably vaccine intellectual property. They were probably also caught maybe inciting some of the violence that you've seen in America. They're contributing to the civil unrest. Uh, I I think there's something more to it than what is kind of being talked about. I believe China. I mean, the fact that they've closed down the Houston Chinese consulate tells me that China is most likely the culprit behind everything that you've seen. I mean, we know that they're behind the pandemic. I think you're going to see they're behind the movements of Antifa and BLM. I think you're also going to see that they've been meddling in the political process, a foreign country meddling in U.S. political process, maybe even meddling in U.S. elections. So this is big. Um, I think this is a big deal. It may not be presented that way, but I think that this is a big deal. I do believe conflict with China is imminent. It is imminent. We're seeing a lot of backlash from the coronavirus. Now we're seeing a lot of consensus building against China. A lot of people, or a lot of countries are starting to go against China. You talk about Huawei, their 5G network. A lot of people are canceling that. I've noticed on a consumer level, getting things from China, like my 360 cameras, very hard to find. That's not a coincidence. So if you're going to buy things from China that's very cheap, you should buy them now, because I think in the near future, getting stuff from China is going to be much harder. Electric bikes are going to get, I ride an electric bike, so getting parts and components from China is going to get a lot harder. That's my prediction. China is being shut out, and I think it's for very good reasons. I think we are. My prediction is that conflict with China is very imminent. That's just how I feel right now. Now things could change, but that's how I feel right now. Anyways, I'm going to conclude this episode. Please like, comment, share. Tell me what you think of all these things happening. I think for short term, there's going to be heavy disruption going on. So get your body armor, get your rifles, get your ammo, get your gun ready. We don't know what's going to happen. But in the long term, I think things are going to start settling down and finally start getting back to normal, minus the Chinese, of course. Anything from China is going to be hard to get. Anyways, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Till next time. Bye bye.